Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to week 7. Jesus, we're already like halfway through the college football season, and I feel like it just started yesterday. Um, oh my Lanta, do we have a schedule and a half of games this week? There are good, great top 10 games like everywhere you look. Let me see. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could see 6 games here that would have been the best game last week. Like in terms of preseason, okay, the featured games last week were Michigan, IU, and TCU, Kansas. I could see 6 games that would be featured games over those games, but we have so many good games this week. We are so spoiled this week with good games. Feature games, Penn State and Michigan and Alabama, Tennessee. We'll get to those at the end. But let's just get right into the picks. Maryland is playing IU at home. Now, this is going to be the only IU home game I'm not going to be at. I'm going to be home for fall break. A lot of streaming probably Saturday. But I'm going to be home for fall break, so I'm not going to be at this game. I think Maryland will win. IU, I think, did a great job against Michigan. I mean, they held them in the game for pretty much the entire game. Eventually, Michigan scored a touchdown in the fourth, then scored another garbage time TD to kind of make the score look better than it was. But that was a great game, close game. IU almost came out with the upset. But I feel like they're going to gotta have a letdown. Maryland's a really good team. I think they're going to win. Ole Miss and Auburn. Auburn's just not great. Ole Miss is great. They're ranked in the top 10. They're still rolling. They do have a crack at Alabama later. So we'll see what they can do, but they're looking dangerous. I think they're a more complete team this year than last year. I know they don't have Matt Corral, but I feel like they can run the ball better this year. And I think they're a more complete team. I think they'll beat Auburn. Kansas and Oklahoma. Oh my Lanta, by the stars of daylight. How that Oklahoma. Remember how we said, when they lost to Kansas State? Oh, that was one of the worst Oklahoma performances I've ever seen. Then they got embarrassed by TCU. Oh, that's one of the worst Oklahoma performances I've ever seen. 49-0 to your most hated rival. Oh, my. And when your most hated rival's not even having that great of a year either, they got beat 49-0 by Texas. When was the last time an Oklahoma team has been shut out? Oh, my Lord. Now, I wouldn't get too hard on Brett Venables. I mean, he lost a lot of players from Oklahoma, from this team. A lot of them went to USC, but my goodness, ooh-wee, that is inexcusable. Give Brett Venables some time. If this happens next year and the year after, get his ass out. But oh my Lord, Kansas is coming to town. Now they were 5-0, obviously. Played a good game against TCU. I figured that game went, I think, a lot how I kind of thought TCU would blow them out. I thought Kansas would get exposed that game, and they really didn't. Kansas had a lead for a little bit in that game, lost by 7. I mean, Oklahoma got embarrassed. I mean, completely embarrassed by TCU. Kansas held in the game. Honestly, Kansas has looked like the better team. I'm going to take Kansas. It's hard to take Oklahoma right now. Texas, wow. So Quinn Ewers actually just returned for Texas. He got hurt in the Alabama game, came back for the Oklahoma game, and he was amazing. I'm telling you, if he stays around next year, what will probably happen is he'll probably be the starter next year, and Arch Manning will redshirt a year. They're going to be good if he sticks around. But he's playing great right now. They're 4-2. They still got stuff to play for. I think Iowa State's going to get beat down this game. Maybe a letdown after such a big win, but I don't know. Minnesota, Illinois. Illinois, after losing to IU week 1, they're ranked now. They're 21. I think Minnesota's better, though. Minnesota has like the similar record, similar resume. I think their roster is better. Even though Illinois is at home, they just beat Iowa 6-9. I think Minnesota's going to win. Georgia, Vanderbilt. Georgia will blow them out. I think Georgia's the best team in the country. A lot of people, I know people have dropped Alabama to 3. And, people are putting Ohio State number 1. Georgia's still number 1 in the AP poll, I think. Or they got back to number 1 in the AP. But I think Georgia's the best team. If I had to rank every team, actually, I did rank every team. These are some of my rankings here. Um, yeah, I still have Georgia #1. I still think they're the best team. They'll beat Vanderbilt. TCU and Oklahoma State. Talk about two teams that are looking fantastic right now. TCU and Oklahoma State are both, I think, easily looking like the two juggernauts in the Big 12. I mean, what is Oklahoma? 0-3 in the Big 12? My goodness, Oklahoma's 0-3 in the Big 12. But TCU and Oklahoma State have both looked by far and away better than everyone else. TCU gets this game at home. This is going to be a big game. Winner's going to control first place in the Big 12 and be ranked in the top 10. I'm going to take TCU. I think they've looked unstoppable on offense. I know Oklahoma State's a great team, but TCU gets this game at home. It's a top 10 matchup. I'm liking the Horny Frogs in this game. I'm liking TCU. I'm gonna take TCU. I think they'll win this one. NC State and Syracuse. Syracuse is undefeated still, 5-0, coming off a bye week. They're ranked. NC State's 5-1. This is a ranked matchup. I think it's going to be close. I think the end is coming for Syracuse. Kansas met their end of their undefeated season last week. I think it's coming to Syracuse this week. I'm going to take NC State. BYU and Arkansas, two teams that suffered some pretty bad losses this past week. BYU lost to Notre Dame, and it wasn't really that close. And Arkansas also losing to Mississippi State, and that game wasn't really that close. BYU gets this game at home. I don't think BYU's that great. I mean, they got blown out by Oregon. They got blown out by Notre Dame. I mean, they beat Baylor, but is Baylor really that great? The answer is no, they're not. I think Arkansas is going to win. Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee State. This is a rivalry game. It's called 100 Miles of Hate. These two teams are very close to each other, and they do not like each other at all. Western Kentucky, I got to see them play when they played IU, and they're not a bad team. They were running up and down on IU. Middle Tennessee State obviously had the blowout against Miami. I'm going to take Western Kentucky on the road. I think they come in and shock the Blue Raider. What's the spread? I want to find a spread for this game. Let's see what we can do in terms of finding a spread for this game. These two teams are both in the Conference USA. Currently, Western Kentucky's favored by 7.5. Yeah, I'm going to take Western. That seems like a lot for a road team. James Madison, who is now ranked for the first time in program history. Actually, this is their first year in FBS. And for the first time in FBS, they're ranked. Still undefeated, beat App State, I know. They're a real good team. I think they'll beat Georgia Southern. Watch out for James Madison. They could be the team. Honestly, right now, they'd be the favorite for the team that crashes a New Year's Six Bowl. There's always that one Group of 5 team. I know Cincinnati went undefeated and made the playoffs last year. They're not making the playoffs. I think for a Group of 5 team to make the playoffs again, they would basically need to go undefeated and have like a really good win. Like I know Cincinnati beat Notre Dame, and that was Notre Dame's only loss. So I think that's what you need to happen. Wisconsin and Michigan State, these two teams have just looked putrid this year. Both these teams suck. I don't even know what to say. I think Wisconsin has looked worse, and Michigan State gets this game at home. And Wisconsin's already fired their coach. I think Michigan State will win. LSU and Florida. LSU, wow, they got rolled by Tennessee. I thought Tennessee would win that game. I did not think they would win that game that badly. Wow, LSU. Florida, I can't remember what they did last week. I think they won. Both these teams are 4-2, I believe. I think Florida's better, and they're at home. Florida was actually in the game with Tennessee for a while on the road. LSU got blown out at home. I think that's all you need to know. Florida to win this one. Clemson and Florida State. Could Florida State possibly pull an upset? Maybe. They could. They lost at home to Wake Forest. I don't know. This is going to be the biggest Florida State home game of the year. Maybe they could spoil Clemson's season and playoff hopes with a big upset. I think Clemson will win, though. Florida State's defense is not that great. I just think Clemson's going to be too good for them for them to compete with. Mississippi State and Kentucky. Mississippi State they lost to LSU early in the year, but they just blew out Arkansas and Texas A&M, two teams that people thought were going to be really good. Kentucky coming off a bad loss to South Carolina. That's kind of what Kentucky's been doing in the past. They've started out real good, then they'll lose one game, and then it's kind of downhill after that. I think Mississippi State's going to win this game. I think Kentucky was in the top 10, and I don't think they're going to come anywhere close to that this year. I think it could be 3 in a row for Kentucky this week. USC and Utah. Now, this was looking to be a real big game. Utah was going to be ranked near the top 10. USC was going to be ranked in the top 5, top 10. And this was going to decide who could go to the Pac-12 title game, and then Utah got caught at a trap game against UCLA, and they could not get it done. Let's quickly talk about UCLA. I think they're on a bye week this week. Yeah, I think they're on a bye week this week. But they are 6-0 and currently ranked 11th. And honestly, they had one struggle game. They beat South Alabama by 1. That was a bit of a struggle game. In fact, they were losing for a while in that game. In fact, they won that game on a last-second field goal. But other than that, they've been blowing out some good teams, man. They blew out Washington. Then they came back and they beat Utah by 10. In fact, they were up. Utah scored a garbage-time touchdown. They were up 42-25. Dorian Thompson-Robinson's a legitimate Heisman-caliber quarterback. He might win the Heisman. And if we could have a spot where USC and UCLA are both undefeated going into one of the last weeks of the season, that could be wild. As for this game, though, I think Utah's going to win. If I had to put money on a team, I'd put my money on Utah. They're 4-point favorites, actually. 4-point favorites against USC. I think USC is going to have a tough time in this road environment because this could be one of the biggest games Utah's ever hosted a top 5 team. And, Utah's defense are they good? They just gave up 42 points to UCLA. I think that was a trap game. I think they're going to show up in the big game. I think Utah wins. We'll see, though. Nebraska and Purdue. I think Purdue's going to win. Purdue's been looking a lot better. They just beat Maryland and Minnesota, 2 good teams after losing to Syracuse and struggling with FAU. 2 good wins for Purdue. So, good for them. Memphis and East Carolina. I'm going to take East Carolina. Holton Ahlers is a dog, and they should be able to win at home. UNC and Duke. UNC definitely way better. Trevor May. What's their quarterback's name? Trevor May. That guy's really good. I'll take them. In that one, Oregon State and Washington State. Coin flip game. Oregon State's had some really close, nail-biting games. I'm going to take Washington State, though. North Texas and Louisiana Tech. I just had to fill another game, and we didn't have enough games. I'm going to take North Texas. Miami and Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, wow, are they bad. They are bad, bad, bad. I was projecting good things for Virginia Tech, too, this year. They're 2-4. I know Miami's not that great, but they're 7.5-point favorites, and I think they win by more than that. Here's a rivalry game for you. New Mexico and New Mexico State. Now, both these teams aren't very good, really. And do they play every year? I don't know. But New Mexico's favored. I think they come in and spoil the home crowd. Give me the Lobos to win this one. Air Force and UNLV. Take Air Force. They're a real good team. Hard to defend that triple option. Okay. Now let's talk about our feature games. Penn State and Michigan. Now, I got to see Michigan play this past week in person. And to be completely honest, they did not look that impressive. IU hung around for a lot in that game. IU was trying some stuff. They did that hurry up for a while. And it was working. It was working for a while. And Michigan really couldn't do anything about it. Their offense was struggling. I think it's going to be interesting how this game unfolds. Now, Penn State also had their fair share of a struggle game against Northwestern, winning 17-7. But other than that, they've looked great. Other than their respective struggle games, both these teams have looked great. I think Penn State has beaten some better competition. They have the big win over Auburn. I know Auburn's not great, but they beat them 41-12. And they have a close win against Purdue. This is going to be a nail-biter to the very end. Expect a lot of defense in this game. I know Sean Clifford's a dog. J.J. McCarthy, he was extending plays, creating when he needed to. Blake Corb's a really good running back. Ronnie Bell, good receiver. But, I mean, Singleton and Washington are good for Penn State. I mean, I was leaning toward Penn State all throughout the Indiana game. I'm like, Michigan might, even if Michigan wins this game, they might lose to Penn State. I switched it up. I'm gonna take Michigan in a really, really close game. Michigan's favored by 7. I think Penn State plus 7 is a good bet to hit. Yeah, Penn State also is coming off a bye week, I think. Yeah, they didn't play last week. I'm still gonna take Michigan though. Coming off a struggle, I think they're gonna find their groove. And I think since they're at home, I think they'll pull this one out. I think you could see a spot where, think about this. What if Michigan beats Penn State beats Ohio State, and Michigan beats think about this. Michigan beats Penn State beats Ohio State beats Michigan. Then you got that triangle 3-way tie. I think we could see that sort of thing. Anyways, I think Michigan wins this game. And lastly, oh baby, is this a big game. This is a massive game. Now, since Nick Saban has come to Alabama, he's obviously beaten many teams many times. But every single team pretty much that he's played has gotten a win against him. I mean, what? Auburn's gotten their fair share of wins against him. Arkansas got a win against him when Darren McFadden was there. South Carolina beat him one year. Who else? Like, teams have beaten them before. Obviously, Georgia beat him. Who else is beating them? Like, there are teams like A&M has beaten them. LSU's beaten them. There are teams that have beaten Alabama once in a blue moon. You know, the one team that hasn't since Saban's come here is Tennessee. He's a perfect 15-0 against Tennessee. But he has not faced a Tennessee team this good yet. Maybe when they had Josh Dobbs. Maybe when Josh Dobbs was there with Jawan Jennings and Alvin Kamara, maybe that Tennessee team was as good as this Tennessee team. I have a hard time seeing it, though. Hendon Hooker is an absolute animal. I mean, he's already thrown for 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. The big kicker, though, 0 interceptions. So they're going to have to take care of the ball in this one. How have these teams been looking? Well, Tennessee blew out Ball State, beat a good Pitt team in overtime. Pitt is a really good team, and they beat him in overtime on the road. Mopped the floor with Akron. Pretty much mopped the floor with Florida. Florida kind of made that game closer than it really was. And then last week, just completely blowing out LSU, basically from the opening field goal, from the opening whistle, blowing out LSU. How has Alabama looked? Well, blew out Utah State, struggled with Texas. Really should have lost to Texas. But squeaked out a win. Beat UL Monroe, beat Vanderbilt, and then I don't know if I would say struggled with Arkansas, but they did let Arkansas come back in that game, and I mean they ended up running it out near the end. And then struggling with A&M last week. I know A&M has a great defense, and it's hard to play against that, but I mean still, A&M's offense was struggling to break 20 points. And you let them score 20, and really, I mean, that game came down to the final play. And that was a game Alabama had been looking forward to all year. So the fact that they struggled in that game is a little bit concerning. Game day's going back to Tennessee. They went for the Florida game. They're going to be back for this game. And, oh my goodness, this game's going to have so much hype surrounding it. This is the biggest home game. This is probably the biggest Tennessee home game in the last 15 years. I'm not even underestimating. It's the biggest Tennessee home game in the last 15 years. Because after this, really, they're only tough. I mean, if they win this, they're gonna be in the top 3, top 2, maybe at least top. I mean, they're gonna get a huge vault if they win this game. Alabama's a 7.5-point favorite, so even Vegas isn't expecting this game to be a blowout for Alabama. Hendon Hooker is the type of quarterback that can create and make plays and cause chaos to help win a game like this. The one thing I would be concerned about if I was a Tennessee fan is the defense. The defense, I don't think is that great. They did just hold LSU to 13 points. So, I mean, is their defense really that bad? I'm not sure. Now, who's going to start for Alabama? Is it going to be Milroe or Young? I thought Milroe would do great against A&M. He was okay. He wasn't that great. I mean, he did enough to win the game, but Jalen Milroe did not look like that much of a game changer. What was his final line? 12 of 19 passing, 111 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He did have a fumble, but I'm pretty sure he also had a lot of rushing. He also had the rushing yards. So is Bryce Young going to come back, or is it going to be Milroe? I don't know. I think either way, though, this is the day. This is the day Tennessee gets it done, and they finally beat Alabama. If you guys don't know, I feel like I try to mention this a lot. My grandpa played football at Tennessee, so Quincy Bell is a big Vols fan. The Vols are my second favorite team right now, besides IU, obviously. So, go Vols. They're beating Alabama. I'm calling it right now. They're going to win. They're going to win. 45-41 is my final score pick. I think they're going to tear it up on offense. We'll have to see when we get there. We'll see. But I love y'all. I hope you guys have a great day. Stay safe out there. And we'll see what this week has in store. It's going to be a fun week, I'll tell you that much. So many good games. I'm really excited.